HR Demo, Salary Distribution, Session Prerequisites. Browse through our tutorial videos on R and R Studio. Brush up your knowledge of histograms, outliers and box plots covered in QM101.1x. Browse through earlier videos on the HR Demo. In preparation, please have R Studio open on your computer and follow along. Maximum benefit guaranteed.
I will now switch to R and proceed to answer these tricky questions and many more. Let's fire up R Studio. How I do that is by double-clicking on an R program that I have written. So the first time it comes up, it might take a little while. Unlike other tools that we have seen so far, this requires some coding. Don't worry about the coding as of now. Just walk with me through this piece of code that I have written, and I'll guarantee you that by the end of this entire course, you will be able to code up some impressive pieces yourself. The first few lines of this code go over a few libraries which add to the capabilities that the original platform has. Don't worry about that. Going further down, you can see that I am reading in the salaries data set into a variable that I'll call metro. So let me go ahead and execute this program in chunks of lines. How I do that is using the run button here. Once I do that, I have something in my environment which has 30,284 rows. If I want to see what's in those 5 variables, all I have to do is to click on it, and what do you see? There are 5 columns over here standing for the variables. Let me get back. I will go ahead and rename the columns along things that we can understand. Once I do that, I click on the Metro dataset once again, and I have employee ID, title, department, annual salary, and review score, as we would expect. After this, I'll go ahead and calculate some parameters of this population. What parameters come to our mind? The mean and standard deviation. Wouldn't we want to know what they are? So let's go ahead and compute them, and I get the mean as around 60,836 currency units. Remember, there could be euros, pounds or dollars. And the standard deviation is 16,500 roundabouts. We will figure out what these things signify later on when the course begins. In our next step, we will create a histogram of the salaries just to see how the salaries are distributed, where they concentrate about. So I go ahead, highlight exactly those lines over there and hit run. And what do I see? A fantastic, colorful depiction of the salaries distribution. If I zoom in, I can see a red line in the middle, and that red line has to do with the average annual salary of about 60,836. In this case, for reference's sake, I have used a dollar sign. You can replace that with your currency. Now, many of us might think that this distribution is normal. Why is that? Because it looks kind of symmetric. Now, one measure of symmetry is the skew. We'll talk about how it is computed later on. Let's just go ahead, compute the skew and put it back onto the plot, shall we? So when I do that, I get a skew of nearly minus 0.5, which is far away from 0, which is the skew for the normal distribution. So don't believe what appears to your naked eye. In our next step, we would like to know how the salaries are distributed in a different way in terms of quantiles. Quantiles are chunks of 25 percentiles. So for that, we use what is called a box plot. What we are going over right now is the many different ways we can visualize a data set. So let me get down the box plot here. When I run it, I get this beautiful diagram once again. And the dots on the diagram, what do you think they are? They all have to do with outliers. Now the outermost outlier is beyond 200,000 currency units. Who do you say it belongs to once again? Now the next aspect of this data set that I'm going to describe to you is a reasonably sophisticated function which tests for normality in a visual manner. You will learn later on that one way to test normality is using what is called the QQ plot. Let's go ahead and get the QQ plot for the annual salary. Now in this QQ plot, there is going to be a line that goes in the middle. If the points distribute about the line fairly closely, then you can say that the data is normally distributed. If it has several deviations, then you would definitely say that it is not normally distributed. Remember, our data set already has a skew. So I'll highlight these lines of code and run it to get our QQ plot. And as I said, many of the points escape from the middle line, and therefore the salaries are not normally distributed.